Hello, and welcome to this demo of the Commission Import Tool by Alexent for Applied Epic. What you're seeing here is a fake commission statement. Commission statements come in all shapes and sizes, and one of the things that has to match up in order for importing to work in Epic is the transaction effective date has to fall within the policy term. And you may not know that looking at this. Also, commission statements come in all shapes and sizes. Using our import tool, we'll be able to identify which ones will not import because either the policy number doesn't match or the transaction effective date is outside of the policy term. But it will also show you up to 4 producers and their producer percentages, so you can check them before you create the transactions and then have to fix them on the back end. I'd rather know ahead of time. So this Excel file is a macro-enabled Excel workbook. It has programming in it. There are 3 sheets at the bottom. One says Epic Report, one says Data, and one says Commission Statement. The first step is you get your carrier commission statement in Excel format, and you copy and paste it here. It does not matter what the order these columns are in. The second thing you do is run a report out of Epic. That includes your policy screen information. So if I click on this sheet down here that says Epic Report, this is where I would copy and paste this report I just ran out of Epic. And I build it from an expiration report and add a bunch of fields to it. I'm basically getting the information from my lines or my policies to make sure that I've got my producer information accurate. Once I have these 2 sets of data, I can then run the first macro. Using our macro, you'll have a tab up here in Excel that says Add-ins. This is where custom toolbars go. And the first add-in says Map CS. It stands for Map Commission Statement. And when I click that, Excel is going to take me over to the commission statement sheet. It just brought me back over here and brings up this lovely box. This box is why I don't care what order these columns are in, because I'm about to tell Excel which client has the client name and the policy number and the commission amount and so on. So my client name over here is in column A. So notice when I hover over column A, the cursor's a down arrow. Just click and it fills it in for you. Now I can use my tab key to move to the policy number box here, or I can click either one. And my policy number is in column B, so I'm going to click on column B. Make sure the cursor is a down arrow. It selects the entire column. Commission amount or percentage, you want to import one or the other, but not both. If you import the premium and the commission percentage, Excel is going to calculate, or Epic is going to calculate your commission amount. Because Epic will backfill the commission percentage, I would use the flat amount. So I'm going to click in this box and choose, this is my commission paid. Now the total of my direct bill transactions that I import will match the amount of the check. There won't be any rounding going on. And then in the premium column, my premium here is in column E as in Edward. And your transaction effective date. Now this is the date that has to fall within the policy term. Some carrier commission statements give you a whole bunch of columns with dates, and you're going to decide which of those dates you're going to use as your transaction effective date. When it comes to benefits, group benefits, there's usually a column that's telling you which month's premium they're paying you for. I love using that as a transaction effective date because based on that date, the macro is going to look for which policy term does this fall within. So if I have a producer that gets paid differently on first year versus subsequent year commissions, now I want my import tool to find that these commissions, trailing commissions, are actually for the first year and the producer should be getting first year commissions. I want it to choose the right policy, and it can do that as long as you've got a column here that gives you a decent date that you can use. So on my fake commission statement here, I have one column with a date, so I'm going to use that column. Transaction types. Importing a transaction type is not required. You can set a default transaction code later in the process in Epic. But if you want your transaction codes, if you want to create them based on what the commission statement says, like mine says renewal or new business or endorsement, check the box. That tells the macro that yes, you want to include a column for the transaction type, and then pick the column that your transaction codes are in. Just know that if your commission statement doesn't tell you this information, but your policy status would, you still want to check the box, pick any old column, and on the next step, when we get to the next worksheet down there, you'll be able to copy and paste your policy status into your transaction code and use it from there. So just know there's a workaround to that one. Transaction description. I've never seen anybody use this, but technically you could import one of these columns as the description of your transaction. You don't need to use it. I'm not going to use it in mine. I just don't see, we programmed it because technically you can, but it's not used very often. The other thing that Epic allows you to do, if you choose to, is import the transactions all the way down to the line. Not just the policy, but down to the line. So can this be important with benefits, where their policy is set up as a package, or they have multiple monoline policies with the exact same policy number on them, but they want the commissions to go to the right one, the vision, the dental, the medical, LTD, STD, life, whatever it is. You can do this in Epic. You can get it down to the line. But that means that your commission statement you get from the carrier needs to identify what it is, so we can map that as well. But if it tells it to you and you want to get it down there, you can. So I'm going to show you how to do that. I'll check the box because I want to do that this time, down to the policy line type, and pick that column. Now down here is number of producers. Up to 4 producers you can list here. So I'm going to put in the max, which is 4. So if there are up to 4 producers on a policy, it will create separate columns for each producer on the next step. So you'll actually be able to see your transaction, what it's going to look like, and what percentage each of those producers are going to get, their code and their percentage, and their type of commission, whether it's a percent or an @ sign. So you can go up to 4 here. Now I'm going to click OK, and Excel is using a function called VLOOKUP to go look for this policy number, and it's also looking for which policy effective date to pull from this report out of Epic. So I'm going to go ahead and click OK. Now it wants me to map those policy types. So now I need to map them for what Epic calls these policy types. So bond, it should be all in caps to match up in Epic. And then I click replace. A business owner is a BOP, and then replace. And notice it's doing a replace here on column C. A business auto policy is BAUT. Homeowners is HOME. Liability is GLIA in my Epic system. Yours might be different. Personal auto is AUTO. Property is PROP. And the workers' comp is WCOM. And just know that your codes may be different than mine, but you would map them for what yours are. That has now done a replace on this column and clean that up. Now the next box that's going to pop up at me is to map these transaction codes. Epic would not understand the word endorsement. It will understand ENDT. It won't understand the words new business, but it will understand NEWB. And the same thing for renewal, RENB. And replace. And that has done a replace on column I. So I'm here on the data sheet. I'm in the middle. This is a combination of the commission statement, all the transactions on the commission statement, and information from the policy screen from my Epic report over here. You have a column right here, column L. Now understand this could be thousands of rows long. We can see all the data just because there's not a lot of rows of data, but there could be a ton. So from here, usually the first thing you do is turn on your filters. And in Excel, that's under data. There's a big fat filter button in there, right there in the middle, and click it. Now you have a drop down at the top of each column. And there's a column here that actually says, will import yes or no, telling you right up front if it's going to make it or not. So I'm going to say, show me the ones that won't. Show me the no's. So on the no's here, the ones that have no effective date, it means that those policy numbers were not found. Those exact policy numbers with spaces and letters on the end, was not found on the report that I ran out of Epic. They would never import because policy numbers have to match. Now this one, there is a policy effective date. You're like, oh, well, it found the policy number. What's the problem? The problem is this transaction effective date on the commission state was June 1st, 2019. And this billing screen expired June 1st, 2018. So this one will not import because this transaction effective date falls outside of the policy term. So that's why that one won't make it. Now I could go back to Epic. I could clean up my boo-boos, rerun my report out of Epic, run it through the macro again, get it so this column says yes on everything. Then I know that they will all import. Now I'm going to clear my filter. Right next to the big filter button is a clear button right here. I'm going to click that, it clears my filters. Now I'm going to change my filter and say, show me the yeses. I want to look at the ones that will match up. Now these will make it. And as I scroll to the right, there's a lot more columns here that we pulled from the policy screens of Epic. Here's my producer 1. And there's their percentages. And their production or credit and their order number. There's producer 2 with the percentage. There's producer 3. And this one also happens to have a producer 4. So it can go out to 4, and you could be checking these percentages to make sure they're right or wrong. Also noticed over here is the policy status from the line. Now, if I didn't know that transaction type because the commission statement didn't tell me what it was, and if I was manually keying it, I'd be looking at the status to decide what to call it. I could actually copy this column and paste it over here into column I, which is my transaction type, and then do a replace in Excel to get it to be 4 characters instead of 3. But just know you've got this information on this data sheet. There's a whole lot going on here. Agency, branch, department. You also have the agency first written date over here on the left if your agency uses that to define whether something is really new or not. Over here in column G. That's another field that we pull in. There's lots of information that allows you to check out your transactions before you actually go create and import them and create them. Now, once I clean this up, so in the case of I've got 4 that aren't going to make it, I can actually change my filter here and say, show me the no's again. And I could copy this data and stick it on a new worksheet down here and just paste it. And I could call this sheet manual entry. Because I'm going to have to go back and manually do something with those. And I could and I'm going to hit my escape key, make the crazy stuff go away. And I'm going to delete those 4 rows because I know they're not going to make it. And then I'll clear my filter. I know that all of these will make it. I'll go back and manually do something with those. That's a choice. You could go back and fix them and run it through again and get them all to play nice. But another choice is pull out the ones that won't make it, import the ones that you can. I'm going to turn off my filters, and then I run my next macro. Up here under add-ins, there's the macro here that says create import file. And when I click that, Excel opens a brand new workbook. This is not a new worksheet, it's a new workbook, and it only has 1 sheet in it. And I'm going to double click between any 2 rows, which will auto size everything. And it only has the columns in it that I need to import into Epic. And in Epic, I would create the mapping file to match these columns in this order, because my macro is going to put it in this order every single time. And when you set up your macro, you can decide whether or not you're going to take it down to the line level. I would not be including that in my mapping file if I wasn't going to include the line type or the transaction type. But either way, you don't have to have a lot of mapping files. It's very basic because the macro is always going to put it in the same order. And then I would save this file, and this would be the file that I would import. So that's the way our commission import tool works for Epic. TAM, it has its own video because it works slightly differently. So if you have any questions, please shoot us an email here at Alexant, or you can email me, Sue Good, at SGOOD alexant.com, sgood@alexant.com. Thank you and have a great day.